Hey, did we lose our guest here right as we're going live? Excuse me one moment. Oh, there we go. I see what's going on. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. Beautiful Thursday. I'm in Wenatchee, Washington, out on the campaign trail here. We've been doing a little bit of outreach and also spending a little bit of time with family. And I hope you guys are all well and enjoying the transition from wet and dreary Washington winter into what's turned out to be a glorious spring so far. I appreciate you all joining us here on now the 14th edition of Be Free TV, where, as you know, we're going to be talking about freedom and the freedom-based solutions that we have to solve the government manufactured issues in our lives, the things that we know that are harming so many people, that are dearly important that we start addressing. And I'm grateful for you guys to be taking some time out with me. I do apologize. It looks like I need to plug in my computer. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest this evening, Miss Anna Jackson. She is a naturopathic doctor and small business owner from Clark County, Washington. And as I travel the state and I meet so many intelligent, incredible people that have wonderful ideas for how we can fix things, it's important to me that we highlight those people and share in their ideas, because no one person is going to be the solution to this issue. And Anna, I appreciate you joining us here this evening. So go ahead and just take a second, introduce yourself,
okay,
while I jet off camera and plug in my laptop.
Okay, sounds good, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody watching. So, yes, as Anthony said, I am a naturopathic doctor, and I own my own clinic, Healthy Roots Clinic. And I serve families in Washington and Oregon, and I'm soon to be licensed in California. And yeah, I absolutely love what I do. And I work with a lot of families who are really fed up with the current state of healthcare, and, try to help them live naturally and get off their medications and, just be the best selves that they can be. So I'm really glad to be here.
Well, I appreciate your heart for healing people, and one of the important things about my campaign is my desire to kind of put doctors and patients back in control of their health care, and not the government intervening, and not the insurance companies that are dictating how medical care is provided. And you're working on the front lines yourself. You have such a different perspective than I think anybody in the general public does. Anybody that works in the medical professions, the nurses that have been talked about so much here recently with the COVID virus, and the local chiropractors, or your massage therapist, your physical therapist, right? You guys know what's going on. So I appreciate you joining us here. And, a couple things I wanted to touch on was actually kind of more to start with, maybe some more of the business end of end of things, right? So I talk a lot about healthcare reform, and we're going to get into that with you. But insurance commissioner, right? I have the ability to affect a lot of different things when it comes to insurance. That's malpractice insurance. That's your liability insurance for slip and fall at medical, at any small business. And even property coverage for your small business property. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit on what your general take is on insurance as a small business owner these days.
Well, you mean like malpractice insurance and all of those sorts of things?
Yeah, let's dive into it. Let's start with malpractice insurance. Tell me about, maybe a good experience or a bad experience.
Yeah, well, knock on wood, I haven't had to file a claim or do anything like that yet. But I think it's so important to have. That was actually one of the first things I applied for when I got my license, before I started seeing patients, just because I know in this kind of world of litigation, and my husband's actually an attorney, so I'm around it all the time, people getting sued all the time, and I do not want that to happen to me. I don't want to lose my license or my business. So that is something that I did right off the gate. And interesting for the type of medicine that I practice, because I'm not really prescribing pharmaceuticals or not doing like IV therapy or high risk therapies. I have a pretty decently priced insurance. It's not that expensive for me because I only do natural medicine that has a low risk profile. So that's something that I appreciate, that I don't have to pay so much money for it.
That's an interesting point that you bring up, and getting a little feedback here. Government is often brought in to try to keep us safe, right? Quote unquote, keep us safe. They're here to protect you. Hi, I'm from the government. I'm here to protect you, right? And they pass a lot of regulations, and in healthcare, FDA, so many different things, and natural health, naturopathic doctors, oftentimes, from what I've seen, get looked down on by the medical community in a lot of ways. Because they are a little bit outside the societal norm this day and age. An interesting point to make is insurance, unlike government, is actually extremely good at mitigating risk and identifying what is or is not a risky business. If something is high risk, it's more expensive. So the thought that a naturopathic doctor doesn't have to pay as much for insurance as somebody who's maybe prescribing pharmaceutical drugs shows that right off the bat, even though the math is there and the actuarial tables are there that show that you have good health outcomes. You aren't a high risk liability situation. So people aren't dissatisfied with your services in any way, shape, or form. And so that's an interesting point to make, that as we go through regulatory reform, and people are scared of, what happens if we remove government? Well, there are other free market indicators out there that show what is or isn't safe. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, completely. And I think it's really interesting, Anthony, because I do have the ability to prescribe here in Washington. But I don't do it. I don't really need to. My medicines work really well. I hardly need to give a prescription. And so even on my insurance form, I actually had to do the percentage. What percentage will you prescribe? What percentage will you use herbs? What percentage will you use homeopathy? And based on that calculation, they kind of spit out, okay, this is your annual insurance that you have to pay. And so, you're completely right. And that even if government didn't have any choice or power in that transaction I had with that malpractice insurance company. So, there are risk evils that I don't think people are aware of, depending on what doctors do and how they practice.
And the free market has handled that easily.
Yes, completely. And I am very happy I'm on the other side, that it's pretty low for me because I don't do risky procedures.
So malpractice, and so that's not too much of an issue for you. So I'm grateful for that, because I know much of insurance can be. Tell folks a little bit what your experience is like dealing with buying business insurance. This position of insurance commissioner affects small business insurance. So as a small business owner, what type of insurance do you carry, and why is it important that you have it? What are you covering?
Yeah, and it's interesting, Anthony, because I'm in an interesting position because I work mostly telemedicine, and that is something that government and insurance regulations and all of these different things are going to need to get up to speed to, because I have an LLC, that's my business, and my malpractice covers if I have a claim against my license, but I don't have a physical address, a physical clinic. So I'm in a different boat in that my malpractice is what I carry. And so it's interesting because as people and technology changes, what types of insurance and different things, I can sit here and see a patient in Oregon, and it's just such a different type of question that needs to be addressed by people in the government, because that is how doctors are practicing nowadays. More and more are doing telemedicine.
And telemedicine is such a wonderful resource. It cuts down on unproductive time, right? People driving to and from the doctor oftentimes when they're sick, and that's a way to spread illness. And telemedicine is something I've supported for as long as I can remember now. And it's interesting that just now, due to the COVID virus, that the state insurance commissioner has ordered insurance companies to start covering telemed visits, because it was previously disallowed. And that's not even a regulation that the insurance companies necessarily like, right? The insurance companies want transactions. They don't care what type of transaction it is. The more transactions, the better it is for the insurance company. Telemedicine is a transaction that they can profit off of, should the government allow them to use those, or to bill for those things.
Yeah.
But the idea that government gets to dictate how a doctor treats a patient, right? That they can say, no, you can't do telemedicine unless we say it's okay. And no, you can't bill a certain company to pay for it unless we say it's okay.
I know. And you get reimbursed less for a telemedicine visit rather than a real visit, a real in-person visit. But what I think is so amazing, Anthony, is that with telemedicine, just think about it. I can be in my home office, which I am. I don't have another rent to pay. My rates are then lowered that I pass on to the patient, because I don't have such huge overhead. I can mail remedies, which is what I do, to patients. I can drop ship whatever they need. And I think it's just such a win-win-win. And the government, in fact, should be encouraging telemedicine, because that is the way of the future. It's because I can see people, like I said, 4 hours away in Oregon, and we didn't have to leave our houses. And for the population I work with, which is a lot of children with autism, pandas, to get them to a doctor's visit is so taxing on that family. So if you can have a visit inside your home and you don't have to leave, how amazing is that? Like, we need to move towards that direction. That really is the future.
At least giving people the choice.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
And I apologize. Are you getting any feedback on your end here today?
No, I'm perfect.
Okay, good. We're working on a new microphone here, folks. So I am not a professional podcaster. I know I made that joke in the past, but I am a normal guy learning how to use some of these newfangled streaming services like the best of us here on lockdown. So bear with us here as usual. Well, that's interesting. I appreciate that you've embraced the telemedicine stuff, because, as a worker, right, as a busy bee myself, even traveling, to and from the doctor during a work day, right? You try to say you get a couple hours off from your doctor's office, or, from your employer, so you can go to the doctor, is sometimes tedious. And, a lot of people work in, commission-based jobs, or they're self-employed, and time is money, right? And so the ability to, have a quick one-on-one in your car and get, 15 minutes of questions answered, versus always having to drive in, it just makes it more accessible to people. And I think you're right. We need to embrace it, make it as simple as possible. And it's something that I've been talking about for a long time. And that's one of the reasons why I see a lot of your live streams, and, your ability to communicate remotely like this. Was one of the reasons why I was excited to bring you on and show people that, there are medical professionals out there that are already embracing this. And we just need to share that knowledge, and completely. That empower people.
Yeah. And Anthony,
so
oh, so sorry. I wanted to add, it's so interesting, because the type of medicine I practice is homeopathy, and I necessarily don't need a lot of lab tests done. But I have a colleague who completely has an online telemedicine based practice, and she actually mails the saliva test kits to the patient in their home. They swap the saliva, they set it into the lab. She's checking for hormones, so she does completely 100% telemedicine-based hormone therapy.
Wow.
Via telemedicine. And it's just so amazing and incredible how you can adjust medicine to an online platform, even with testing, even with all of these things. And so, yes, we need government to get up to speed and insurance to get up to speed with that aspect.
Well, I'll do everything I can to help on my end there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you touched on something a few minutes ago that I've heard in the past, and especially from people that live on the borders of different states. In your case, Oregon and Washington. Tell me about the licensing practices that you have to go through.
Yeah, so I have to, I'm licensed by two different boards, the Washington State Department of Health, and then in Oregon, it's the Oregon Board of Naturopathic Medicine, which is underneath the Oregon Department of Health. And so I have to take two different tests and pay a bunch of money to each state independently.
Do you mind me asking how much?
Yeah, it's $400 per year to maintain my license. And then I have to have
times two?
Times two.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then I have to have my license as continuing education credits, which thankfully overlap, so I can use the same continuing education to fulfill both states. And right now I'm in the process of expanding to California. I just sent off my application. California is a little more expensive. It's a $400 fee up front, and then it's $1,000 every 2 years. So $500 a year. So it's a little more expensive. But, I feel a little silly that I have to pay, what is that, 800 plus 500, $1,300 plus CE credits just to maintain a license in 3 states. But, if I want to work with those people, I have to be licensed in that state. So it's just a cost of doing business.
An added cost that ultimately takes food off of your table and ultimately food off of your patient's table, because everything gets eventually passed around, because that's how things work, right? If you have to buy extra envelopes to mail things to patients, you're going to have an extra cost, and that's going to cost more on the bill. Same thing to do with licensing. And do you think it makes you safer? Do you think the multi-licensing, do you think it serves any purpose in a safety factor for patients?
I actually met with a lawyer who specializes in naturopathic medicine, and it's interesting, Anthony, and I think you know that, but the practice of medicine laws in each state are different. And if I were to, the reason is because if I were to work with somebody, let's say in New York, and they were to sue me, my malpractice would not cover me at all because I'm not licensed in New York. And so that is the main reason why I have to get licensed. And, I would love to expand. The next state I'm looking at is Arizona and Colorado. That's another added cost. I'm going to be paying like $2,000 to $3,000 a year just to maintain my license. But I really would like my malpractice to cover me on the spectrum of very safe to very risky. I'm like way over here. I really am, because there are naturopaths who take a chance and work with people online and they're not licensed in that state, and they don't bat an eye. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that if something happens, I went to school for 8 years. I don't want anything to jeopardize my license.
And it's unfortunate that it'd be one thing if it was a organic situation that made you want to take extra precaution as a business owner, as an individual, or as somebody that takes an oath to do no harm. But there's nothing organic about the fact that it's illegal for a malpractice insurance policy that's sold in Washington to cover you in another state, right? If we took away that regulation, that policy would likely cover you in multiple states, maybe for a couple extra bucks a month, because you would be servicing a broader area, or they might look at it based on your gross receipts, right? And whether it's in state or out of state, the same amount of patients are being seen. So if we remove that coercive regulation over your life, you'd be more free just to do what's best for your patients.
God. I would love that. I would love that so much, because I can't tell you how many people contact me in states that I can't work with them because I'm not licensed there. And it breaks my heart, because I could easily jump on a quick call like what we're doing and help them and offer very specialized care. Not a lot of people offer homeopathic care like I do. So, it's very limiting to me. So I would love that.
And that's unfortunate, because if we want healthcare to be accessible and we want healthcare to be affordable, right? All these catchwords that we've heard from politicians for years, and that's why I use them in my campaign now, because I want to actually represent what those things could be and what they should be. But these politicians are hypocritical, because they don't go to bat for good medical providers like you to make it as easy as possible to provide treatment to people. That it's almost as if they don't want people to be healed.
Yeah. It's that would just make the world of difference if I was able to work with somebody and go to sleep knowing I'm fine, I'm safe. If anything happens, I mean,
your business is at risk.
Yeah, I'm not going to lose my house. I'm not, right? It's like, that's why I'm so careful. And I'm paying so much to get licensed in all of these states. It's honestly a bit ridiculous. If I add Arizona and Colorado, that's 5 states that I have to be paying dues to every single year just to maintain a license to practice.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, because I know you'll do good for people. So yeah. I'm sorry you have to go through that. And that's something that libertarians talk a lot about, is these unnecessary restrictions that slow the trade of goods and services that people organically want and request in their lives. That, I wouldn't have any problem going through a doctor that's in New Mexico if I had a friend that had been going there and referred them. No different than I'd have issue going to a doctor that's here in Wenatchee if my cousin recommended them. As long as they come well recommended. If I do my research, look on my Yelp reviews, right? Angie's List, all these different things next door, right? You can get so much information about the doctors that are out there. And if you can't find any information, maybe that's the doctor you don't want to go to. So we can be safe without these unnecessary regulations that make healthcare more expensive. So
and there are just so many people in other states who do not have naturopathic physicians specializing in autism, pandas in their state. So it's like very difficult for them to find providers that provide that kind of medicine. That's why I get asked, I get so many messages, hundreds of messages from people I can't work with.
So let's, before we transition over to healthcare, because I want to pick your brain on that, because that's definitely your strong suit. But I appreciate your perspective on some of the stuff we don't talk about. Healthcare reform, huge topic. People aren't talking about how much it costs a small business owner to do business. You pay your situation's a little different because you work from home, but we pay taxes on the property that your medical provider works from. They pay B&O taxes if they have employees. They have to pay for health insurance in a lot of cases, or or want to pay for health insurance for their employees, and that and it's taxed at every step of the way. There's fees, there's regulations that are unnecessary that are driving up the cost. But real quick, if I remember correctly, you do not take insurance. Is that right?
Yep, I do not take insurance.
Tell people kind of the backstory there and why you think you're able to provide better medical care.
Well, it's insurance is such a huge pain for doctors, especially small business owners, because I am my only employee. I like to keep it really simple. So I do many tasks.
Only one person to yell at.
Yeah, I'm it, and I love it. And that's how I wanted my business to be. I don't want a big business. I don't really want people to work for me. I just like me, at least for now. And taking insurance is such a headache. I actually precepted with a number of physicians who did, just to make sure that if I wanted to do it, I would know what it entails. And you don't realize this, but outside of seeing patients, you have to chart. That takes at least 20 to 30 minutes.
Per patient?
Yeah, per patient. And that's what I do right now, because you have to chart everything, in their chart. And then on top of that, you'd have to bill insurance. And so you'd have to put ICD-10 codes. You'd have to put all of your diagnoses. And then determine what reimbursement. Is it like a 900, I forgot, 03 or 04, a new patient visit or a return patient visit. And it just takes so much more time to code and bill and write your chart note in the way that insurance wants you to write your chart note, or else you're going to get denied. And trying to fight with insurance over a denied claim is like battling tooth and nail. It takes hours to try to get on the phone. I don't have hours. And so really, if you want to take insurance, you absolutely have to employ somebody part-time to be your admin to deal with insurance. And I could not imagine doing that because insurance does not reimburse that much. At least for me as a naturopath, I spend 90 minutes for a first visit and then anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes for follow-ups. And the amount that insurance would reimburse me if I were to also pay for an admin, it just would be impossible. I would make $20 to $30 an hour being a doctor, and that's just not sustainable, especially with how much time I see each patient. I can only see 3 patients a day and my mind is gone, because I spend so much time with each patient doing the medicine that I do. So
yeah. I think, it's no, how should I say this? We're no stranger to how broken this system is, you and I and so much of the public. Let's talk briefly about the obvious solution that most people talk about right now, which is Medicare for all, or the existing programs of Medicare to Medicaid. Do you have any experience, or could you compare what how should I say this? How would you compare private insurance now to Medicare now? And is there any difference in the billing rates or the ease or the administrative end of the deal?
Well, it's Medicare. So it's funny, Anthony, because naturopaths are not licensed on a national level. We cannot accept Medicare patients. We can only accept Medicaid. Okay.
So you're telling me the government is restricting the type of medical care that people can get?
Yes. Anybody who has Medicare cannot see a naturopath. They will not be reimbursed at all. Yeah.
And this theoretically could be the same type of control that they would use should these systems expand.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Would you trust a government that is already not deeming your services as worthy of their coverage? Would you trust them to do the right thing moving forward and include you in these types of programs to give people the care
No,
that they seek?
no. And Anthony, naturopaths are reimbursed about 70% as a regular medical doctor. That's kind of a known um, thing, in the profession. I know that Oregon Medicaid, OHP, is very fair, and they reimburse naturopaths the same as they do medical doctors. But the other insurances, Aetna, all of those other ones, private insurances, or they have say over how much they reimburse. They definitely discriminate against naturopaths, and it's about a 70%. They get paid about 70% what medical doctors do.
Wow. That's the idea that the doctor-patient relationship is being removed in the name of billing is unfortunate, but you found a way to step outside that system.
Yeah.
And you believe you can do it more efficient, you can do it
Yeah.
cheaper.
Yeah, I do. And it's like, I really, really thought hard. Do I want to take insurance? But it would be such a hassle, and it would take me away from what I really want to do. And I just want to see people. I don't want to spend 3 hours a day filling out insurance reimbursements and feeling so frustrated if my claims get denied for like a $50 visit. Like, I don't want to spend an hour to try to get that money back when I could see somebody else,
Yep. And that's why a lot of doctors are starting to go that route and not take insurance, Medicare or private, because it can be just detrimental to their own health. I hear a lot of talk about medical burnout. We're seeing shortage in nursing staffing and doctors going into the field. I think I saw an article the other day that by 2021 we're going to be about 1 million short. We have to be able to look outside the system, because the doctors that aren't taking insurance are not being talked about right now. And that's why I'm grateful for you to be on the show, because right now the solution is Medicare for all, right? That's the only solutions that are being proposed. But and then
I would not like that, because it would not sustain. I could not do that as a small business owner. I do not have the resources to fight with insurance all day long.
No matter what type of insurance it is, or what company it is, or government organization. And that's why it's so important that we start addressing care on the front end as well. Mm-hmm. Insurance becomes necessary because things are expensive and people are living paycheck to paycheck, and the cost of care is so expensive, which is why I like talking at the beginning of this of just the business end of it, right, is increasing the cost of care. That ultimately increases the cost of insurance, or the need to have insurance. What are a couple thoughts you have about the cost of care itself and why it's too high?
Oh, you mean people?
Having to go to a doctor. Why is it so expensive to why are the bills so expensive? Why is getting medication expensive? Why is a checkup so expensive?
It's gosh, I actually recently had a patient who had to go in, and they were having a heart attack, and they had to go in and have like a coronary stent placed, 2 of them. And the bill ended up, and they stayed 2 nights in the hospital, and the bill ended up being $174,000.
Wow.
And so where is the cost going? It's just outrageous. It is literally outrageous how much it costs. There's no way that it would cost that much money. I don't know where it's going, Anthony, and I don't know if it's going to the hospitals. I know doctors make a good living, but there's a lot of unaccounted for funds going somewhere that I don't know where it's going. But it's certainly ridiculous. And that's why people need to buy into insurance, because if you don't have insurance and you have to go and have a procedure like that done, it will bankrupt most families.
Yeah.
They don't have
I often call it, it's not health insurance, it's bankruptcy insurance is what it is. It's truly what it is.
That truly is what it is. And it's just so sad, the ridiculously high prices that exist. I don't know where it's going. You probably have a better idea than me.
What are your thoughts about lobbying in the medical industry and how that affects cost or just treatment and what's available to doctors and patients? Whether the medical devices or the pharmaceutical lobby.
Yeah, I mean, the pharmaceutical industry outspends oil and gas 2-1 on Capitol Hill. So the pharmaceutical industry has such huge power over what is, what drugs are on the market. And these lobbyists go to doctors' offices and, take them out to dinner and tell them, oh, these are the most amazing medicines and these drugs, and look at these amazing studies. And the doctors don't even have time to read the studies. They just take the word of the person presenting, usually a really beautiful, person, female, presenting all of this information.
Perfect teeth.
Yeah. And I think the lobbying that goes on is really disturbing to me. It's very disturbing to me because the medicine I practice, Anthony, to make a remedy, for example, I have all of my kits back here that I use for patients. I can literally make a homeopathic remedy for about $1. That's how much it costs me to make this, bottle included. And this medicine is so powerful, and it helps, and it actually heals. People get better on this medicine. So I don't know why, there's such a discrepancy and such expensive pharmaceutical pills that are pushed so hard when something that costs $1 is just not even part of the equation,
And can't literally not part of the equation because Medicare won't cover it.
Yeah, completely.
they won't cover that $1 vial.
Yeah, or they won't even cover me. They won't even cover me to let a 65 or older person come to me. They won't cover that visit. And so that person is faced with, okay, they have to pay out of pocket to see me, but they're already paying, so much or for their medication or their labs or whatever they're doing. They're already stretched so thin. So it's a real conundrum, and it's something I deal with all the time, because I want to help, and it's very difficult, what's going on.
I just feel bad for the medical providers that they have the heart to care for people, right? That's what they go to school for. They spend, $100,000 in some cases more going to school so they can help heal people. And then they get involved and realize kind of what the system is. And that's why it's so important that we highlight these issues and why we do this show, Be Free TV, because the general media isn't talking about telemedicine, or at least they weren't up until COVID. They're not talking about, what Medicare for All doesn't cover. The media and the politicians aren't talking about how expensive it is for your, the small family medical provider, the doctor you went to for the last 25 years of your life, right? What it costs them to stay afloat, and why so many of their businesses have gone under, and they've either retired from the industry entirely or just went to work for a conglomerate, because then they could at least just see patients. They didn't have to deal with the business side of things, and they could just collect the paycheck. But, you talk to them and they have to see so many patients a day, they can't see 3 or 4 and put everything they have into making sure that, Bill or Ryan or, Anna or Anthony are healthy.
Completely, Anthony. And that's another part why I do not take insurance, is because I really spend what the patient doesn't see another hour or 2 researching different things and techniques. And so, the way hospitals and doctors make so much money through insurance is because they have to see 5 to 6 patients every hour, because they're reimbursed, $50, $60 per patient. So to get it up there, they have to line them up. And that's what people are used to. They're used to 5-10 minute visits with their doctor. They're used to the nurse coming, getting them, taking their blood pressure, going over the history, and then the doctor walks in for 10 minutes and leaves. And that system will never address that person's root cause issue. It will never get to, why they have hypertension, why they have diabetes, what can be done to help that. 10 minutes will never get you there. And so another reason why I don't take insurance is because the time involved to really provide good quality care is much, much more than insurance will ever reimburse me as a doctor, and the headache that comes with it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, from all the research I've done and the other medical providers I've spoken to. And, I believe insurance has a place in this world. It is a product that I appreciate. I've seen the good it can do for people. But we have to be eyes wide open and see the good and the bad. And really, but what my hope is to find a way to create a market that works for more people. Because what we have right now isn't working for pretty much anybody except for the people up at the CEOs and the lobbyists and the politicians, really, that get paid off by the lobbyist. I mean, Mike Kreidler, the guy I'm running against, 50% of his money comes from the insurance lobby. I've got a lot of friends in the insurance industry. I was an agent. I worked in there. My wife works in there. I've gotten $10 from an insurance agent, that sells car insurance, right? I don't have any money from any lobbyists, but somehow the incumbent has done that, and he's bought and paid for, and that affects people like you. And in turn, it affects all your patients. I believe that if we could move towards a route of something like an a la carte health insurance type program, that wouldn't necessarily be something everybody wants, and it might not fix everything. But what are your thoughts as far as people being able to pick and choose coverage?
You know what? As you were talking, I was thinking, I feel like I have the perfect vision, and that is to allow people to pick what they want. And I think having people having maybe a higher deductible, catastrophe only insurance, personally, that's what I have. I actually have I don't even have insurance. I have a healthcare ministry coverage that I do for myself, because I really don't want to be part of the insurance model personally. But I think it would be great to have some sort of insurance where people can, pay for seeing doctors like me when they want, not have the huge $400 or $500 overhead cost
Per person.
Yeah, per person. And then if anything happens, then they have their insurance that kicks in an emergency situation. Because for most of my patients, they're very health conscious. They eat very well. Like, they are doing everything right. They live a very natural lifestyle. They want and seek alternative care that will never be covered by any insurance out there. And so they have to pay out of pocket already. So why not give those people the chance to have a really high, just catastrophe only insurance that costs less? And then they can put their money into providers that they actually want to see. I would love for that to happen. I would totally be on board if there was an insurance that was like that.
I think there's an easy way to do that, and it means getting out of the way and encouraging it. and being willing to look outside the box. And what's interesting is every other type of insurance you can buy, you get to pick levels of coverage. So this idea that health insurance can't work that way is absurd. So why isn't a commissioner who's tasked with consumer protection protecting your right to buy what you want and instead restricting the market? Well, I appreciate your thoughts on this. You and I think we could talk for hours and hours, and drill in even on more detail. And I'd like to actually, maybe you and I can chat offline and schedule another time to have you come on here in a month or two, because I would like to maybe hone in on some more specific healthcare stuff that you're seeing. And because ultimately, if we're not healthy, everything's going to be expensive. We got to get back down to being healthy. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on that. But real quick, go ahead and plug your business if you like one more time. How can we make Washingtonians healthier?
Yeah, sure. Healthy Roots Clinic. And, even if you don't want to see me, I do so many free Facebook videos all the time, teaching people about homeopathy, about flower essences, about, natural medicine. So you can follow me on Facebook, Anna Jackson. Jackson is my last name. Just to learn, I'm just here to teach.
Yeah, and there's all types of medical options out there, and knowledge is power, and if you can find a way to make yourself healthier, I think that's embracing the diversity of medical care and medical treatment is something that's been devalued by the establishment, by the pharmaceutical lobbies, by the American Medical Association, by the politicians, and frankly, I am happy to support the chiropractors, the homeopaths, the acupuncturists, the massage therapists, the midwives, the doulas, all the people that provide valuable services to people, making sure that you guys get a fair shot in the market to provide services. And so anything I can do to help your industry, as long as it is not forcing people or writing more regulations, I am on board. I will take away as many regulations as possible that allow your business to prosper so that the health of the people that you serve prospers. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anthony. It was so great to be on.
Awesome. Well, if you guys just tuned in, you didn't get to check out the whole thing, put it in on a watch pirate party later, share it, watch it with your friends, instead of Netflixing and chilling, go ahead and rewatch this from minute one. In the meantime, plug the campaign here, anthonywilty.com. We have 1,200 yard signs that are ready to go out. Anna is a supporter, has bought a sign or two from me in the past. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more that need to get out. Go buy a sign on the website today. We will get you connected with a field director. You can support the ideas that are going to make insurance and healthcare better in this state. So I appreciate you joining us. And remember, be free is a mindset. You own your life. You own your body. You own what you create. And it is your life to control, not mine, not the government's. So thank you for joining us, and God bless, and be free.